Hey guys, this is Zach Bush, and today I'm going to be covering the Move tool for you guys. And I just want to explain this thing right here is just the outline of what we're going to be covering today. The top one is what I'm going to be speaking to you about each time. So once we finish that, I'll scroll up, and the next one, unlocking backgrounds, is the thing that we're going to be covering. So it kind of just gives you a guide, so you won't get lost, or you know what's going to come up, or you know exactly what we're going to be covering inside this tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back up, and so layers is the first thing we're going to be talking about, because in order to use the Move tool, we need to know a little bit about what layers is. So layers is this little panel over here. It's just where all your actual photos, your text, your colors, everything is going to be within layers. So layers is a very important part of Photoshop. You're going to use it all the time for every single thing you do. So if it's not here and you don't see it, you can go to Window and select Layers. Mine's checked right now, which is over here. If it's not checked, you can just simply click it here, or you can hit F7 on your keyboard and it will pop up in your window, so you can view that. Alright, so I'm going to jump back to the project that we're going to be using. Oops. And yeah, this is it. So moving on to unlocking the background. To unlock the background of an object, every project you make that's brand new, it's always going to have a locked background. Even if you open up a photo in Photoshop, and it's probably going to be locked. So how to unlock it is that you just double click on the layer over here. Don't double click in here, because that's going to give you layer filters and effects and stuff, but you want to double click on the actual background of the layer icon, and you'll just say new layer, say OK, and that will unlock it for you. Alright, so I can just undo that real quick, and I undid that by doing Control Z. Apple Z on a Mac if you're using that. I'm using a window, and I'm going to just double click on this again, and that will say new layer. Name the layer is layer 0. You can name it to whatever you want, but I'll just leave it at that right now and just say OK. Alright, so we've unlocked our background, and next I just want to tell you the shortcut for the Move tool is V on the keyboard. You can also see what shortcut the Move tool is by hovering over. This is the Move tool right here, by the way. By hovering over it, and see how it says Move tool and it has the V in parentheses. That is the shortcut for this tool. So all these have shortcuts. I think for Sharpen or something like that have shortcuts to them. So if you hover over them, you can say, oh, this is Move tool is V. It's very helpful when you're working on a big project, or you're just working in general. I don't even actually click these anymore. I just hit the keyboard shortcuts of everything to speed up the process. So the quicker you can memorize all your toolbar shortcuts, the faster you'll be. And then your client, or even yourself, you'll just be happier because you're getting things done a lot faster. Alright, so next we're going to place a photo, and let's see how to place a photo within this project. I'm going to go to File, right up here, click on that, and come down to Place Embedded. And that is going to pop up this window. You're going to find wherever your pictures are, and I'm just going to go to my pictures and select Desert. I'm happy with that, and just double click. And that's going to embed it inside our project. Now it has this bounding box right now. It's just saying like, hey, do you want to place it here? You can actually move it around before you decide to place it by just clicking the mouse button and moving it around. And you see these pink guides here. We're going to get to that right after this. But you can just click, and I'm holding down the left mouse button, and now I'll let go to place it, but I'll just put it right here and say OK. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to press Enter on the keyboard, and that bounding box will go away. Now, if you are seeing, I'm going to jump into, if you're seeing this on your actual photo itself. That's just the transform control box. I'll get to that in a second, but I'll just leave mine on because I think it comes naturally, or it comes as a default. It comes with it on. So I'll just leave it on for right now to match yours. Now I'm going to go and place one more photo in here so we can work with two and not just one. So I'm going to go to File and Place Embedded. And I'll just say the flowers is good. Now it has this bounding box again. I'm going to move it down before I hit enter. I'm happy with that, and I'm just going to hit enter now. So now I got these two images right here, and the next thing I want to talk about is those pink lines, which are the smart guides. Alright, so smart guides are just helping you. Literally what they are is like the guides helping you set wherever you want your image to be. So it's like locking it into place. See how I'm like going over to the middle and it's snapping it to the center, so it's automatically centering my image. It's just a nice feature to have. I always usually leave mine on, but if you're like not wanting that, you want it to be like off center just a tad and it keeps on snapping, what you can do to turn this off is go to Window and then come down, or no, I'm sorry, View, and then go to Show, and it's right over here, Smart Guides. See how it's selected on? You can click that, and now if I click and hold, it's still snapping to the side, but the pink lines are gone. Those are the smart guides. So my snapping is still in effect, and that's because if I go back up to View and go to Snap to, and then it says Document Bound. See, all these things are on right now. It says it's snapping to guides. We don't have guides right now. It snaps to everything. So right now it's snapping to the document bound. So that's why it was snapping over here on the edge. So if you don't want that to, you can just deselect that. And now if I move this, oh, it's still doing it. So I'm just going to turn off all snapping. So I'm going to click the snapping, snap right there, which this is a shortcut, Shift, Control, semicolon, I think that is. But yeah, all my snaps should be off. And now I'm going to try that again. There we go. See how I have that little space there I can get? Because all my snapping is turned off. Now if you're like, I really like that feature, all you have to do is go up to View. And then come down here to, I'm going to turn on snapping again. And I'm going to make sure that document bounds is on. And I like the pink line, so I'm going to turn on smart guides again, and by not going to snap but going to show and then smart guides. Alright, so now if I grab this again, it snaps, the pink lines are back, and we are good to go. Alright, next thing is auto select. So auto select is a feature within the Move tool. It's right up here at this this panel, or this bar up here, which is the Move tools, all the settings for the Move tool. So if I select the next tool, it changes these things, but I'm going to keep it on the Move tool, and these are the settings that the Move tool has to offer. So auto select is on right now. So what that means is if I have this, I have my flowers selected, and if I click here on the desert, it's automatically going to select that. As you see here, it jumps in the layers to the desert, and so now I can move around my desert, and or if I go back, I can just keep on going back and forth because auto select is on. Now if I turn this off right here, now if I try to click on the desert while I have my flowers selected, it's not going to do anything because auto select isn't on. So it just selects objects with your mouse instead of actually you having to use the control and click, which I'll get to right now. If you don't have that on, you're like, oh, I don't really like going back and forth, and I kind of changed my mind of how I wanted to select things, you can always hit Control on your keyboard and hold that down, and while you have that down, you can left mouse click, and it actually selects the desert. And if I let go of control and try to click my flowers, it's not going to do anything. But if I hold down control, click, it jumps to my flowers. So that's a quick shortcut to, instead of using auto select all the time, if you just like to sometimes use it, you can hold down control on your keyboard, and that can jump back and forth to any layer you want. Even the background layer, it can do that. So any layer, anything in your actual document, you can select using control and clicking. All right, so auto select we figured out. Duplicating is a pretty cool feature as well, using the move tool. So how I talked about holding down control and clicking. So if you hold down control, if you hold down alt, see how this little, I'm holding down alt right now, and you see how my cursor turned into two arrows, one black and one white? That is just showing you that it's going to duplicate if I keep on holding alt down. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to hold down alt and then click and drag. It duplicates that image that you've had selected. Alright, so let's say I'll do that with my flowers. So instead of doing auto select, I'm going to hold down control, click on my flowers. That takes me to my flowers layer. And now I'm going to hold down the alt key. My duplication icon shows up, and now click and drag, and now I've duplicated both of these photos. Alright, I'm going to go control click to move this. Now I have 4 photos instead of just 2. And you can do this as many times as you want. You can continue to hold down the alt key and deselect and keep on clicking, click and let go, click and let go, and it's just going to duplicate your layer over and over as many times as you want. Now I don't want all these in here right now, so what I'm going to do simply is just hit the delete key on my keyboard and just keep on deleting on my keyboard until I get one desert, and I'm going to control click one of these flowers and delete it. Alright, so that's how you duplicate. You just hold down the alt key on your keyboard, and you can just click and drag as many times you want to duplicate it. Alright, so next, layer group, which is this little icon right up here in the move tool settings. This is just saying, okay, I want to select individual layers, or I want to select a group. And what a group is, I'll show you that right now. So I have layers selected right now. So all I'm going to do, let's just turn on auto select for right now. I'm going to select this. It's just selecting one layer. But if I had, let's say, a lot of different photos in a group, and a group is real quick, let's just duplicate this layer right here by holding down alt, and I'll just duplicate this 4 times, put that in there using smart guides, and I'm going to hold down the shift key while in my layers. So I have my 3rd copy of my flower selected. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to come down here to my flowers, and what that's going to do is select whatever you have currently, and if you go up or down on the layers, it's going to select everything that's in between that. Okay, so you can also do, if you want to do separate selections, you want to do, like, let's say a flower 3 copy and flower 2 and just another copy in the original. You can hold down the control key on the keyboard. So if you, let's say you don't want to copy flower copy 2, you just want to copy these, you can hold down the control key. If you want to select all of them, you just hold down shift, and that will select anything that's in between my original selection and my last selection I just clicked. Alright, so now I have all these selected. So it's, again, it's just shift to select everything, and then control to select whatever you want individually. And I'm just holding down to deselect. I'm continuing to hold down control, and it deselects everything that I want to have deselected. But I do want to have these flowers selected, so I'm going to hold down the control key, select all these, and now right down here there's a little icon in the layers palette, and it looks like a little folder. That folder is how you group something. So that little icon that showed, our little description pops up, it says create a new group. I'm going to click that, and that is a group now. So I have all my flowers. I can expand this by hitting this little arrow key right here, and it shows me everything that's in my folder. I can collapse that by hitting the arrow key again. I'll open it up and just leave it at that right now. It doesn't mean that these things are out of here. It means that they're still in this group, and to figure out what's in a group or not, you see how these are actually indented from the original. Like, let's say that, see this desert right now, it's all the way to the left. These are all the way to the right, or not all the way, but they're indented, embedded. They're off to the right, let's say. And so that shows you that that is actually in a group, and that's in group 1. So you can double click and name this group with anything you want. I'll just leave it at what it is right now, because we just want to talk about going back to the move tool and this layer right here. Instead of having it be a layer that I want to select, auto select, I want it to be a group. So I'm going to click group right now, and I'm going to select, holding down control, I'm going to select the desert. Oops, I have group on, so I'm going to go back to layer, select the oh, there we go. I had auto select selected, and I was holding down the control, and that means it's turning off auto select when I hold down the control key. So if you have it deselected and you hold down the control key, see how the little icon shows up and says it's selecting it? So I'm going to hold down control, click on this, it goes to my desert, and I'm going to go back to group. So if I click on one of these, if I hold down control and click on just this flower, look what it does. It selects the group instead of individual flower, because I have group selected within my move tool. So that's kind of nifty. It's kind of a cool tool to use if you're like, I don't want to select individual pieces, I want to select everything in this group and move it around. If you want to select the individuals, you just go back to layer, and now hold down control, click, and it selects that individual object within that group. Alright, so I'm going to just move this flower out of this group by clicking with my left mouse button, holding down and removing it. You see this little line that kind of shows up inside of Photoshop? That means that you're taking it out of that group. I don't know if you can see it, but there you go. And when I let go, see how it comes back to the left? That means it's out of this group. I can get rid of this. I don't have to delete individual layers. I can just select this group 1, and I can either hit D or delete on my keyboard, or I can come down to this little trash can icon in the layers palette and just select that. It says delete the group 1 and its contents, or delete only the group. And that means if I delete only the group, it's only going to delete this folder. All these are going to go back to the left side and be safe. If I delete group and contents, that means this folder is going to be deleted, as well as whatever's in here, which is these 3 flowers. Alright, I want to delete everything and its contents, so I'm going to say group and contents, and there we go. So we're back to the original of having just a flower and a desert photo in here. Alright, so so we talked about layers and groups, which I went too far down with. Now we're going to talk about transform controls. So transform controls are right up here. Show transform controls, those are on. That's that little box that's showing up on our objects. If I deselect this, they go away. We won't be able to use them without hitting a shortcut on our keyboard, which is Control T, but I'm just gonna keep this on for right now, and that gives us our transform controls. And transform controls are just what they sound like. You can transform the image to be, you can squish it, you can enlarge it, you can shrink it, you can twist it, turn it, warp it, a lot of different things. But right now I'm just going to keep to the basics. So see how I'm hovering over the corners here, and they give you different icons each time you do this. I'm just going to click and drag, and I can rotate this guy just by grabbing the corners like that. Or I'm going to undo this. A really great tool to remember is Control Z, and that undoes something once. if you want to continue to undo something, you hold down Control Alt and then you hit Z as many times as you want, and it's going to keep on going back. But I just did something once, so I just hit Control Z once. If I do something multiple times, let's say I rotate this thing and then I squish it and I'm like, actually I don't really like this, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hold down Control Alt and then hit Z once. Wait a minute. There we go. Before I do that, that wasn't correct. You hit Control Z just once, and then if I want to continue to go back, I think it's Control Alt Z now. It's not doing it. That is weird. Not sure why it's doing that for me. Maybe it's because, oh, that's why. It's because I was in the transform control still. So like, let's say I move this, see this X that's showing like, hey, I'm moving this thing. Until I hit enter and I'm like, I'm happy with this, then that goes away. My control, transform control is bigger. So now I can go back and undo as many times as I want because I'm not still in that control options with the X. So anytime, let's just say, I don't know if I'm making sense, anytime there's an X in your photo, let's say like that, that means you're still in the you're actually in transition and changing this look of this photo. And so if I try to undo multiple times, it's not going to work because this X is showing that I'm still moving this image and I need to decide where I'm going to place it. So I'll hit enter. Now I've shrunk that and twisted it. Now I can do Control Alt Z to get back to the original state. Alright, so just like rotating, you can rotate any of these corners, and then you can shrink it by using the sides. You don't have to be exactly on these things, you can just grab anywhere you want and then you can shrink it. Now if you wanted this to rotate, let's say on a different angle instead of the center, see this little box right here, you can hold down Alt and move this guy around within your box or even outside your box. And now when I rotate this thing, it's going to rotate. This is like the epicenter of my actual image, so now it's going to rotate around this, kind of like the Earth rotates around the sun. Alright, so that anywhere this is, that's where your center of rotation is going to be. Alright, I'm going to hit enter to set this. I don't really like it here. I'm going to do Control Alt Z to go all the way. I guess it jumped all the way back. Oh yeah, because I hadn't done very many steps because I was still in the transform. Let's say box. So yeah. Now if you want to move these corners, you can hold down the control button and see how my cursor turns to a white arrow. I can actually just move this corner by holding down control and then moving that in. See that? You can do whatever you want. It kind of gets weird, but until I let go of my control button, it's going to start moving it like that. I let go of my control, but I'm still moving it with my mouse. Once I let go of my mouse, there we go. Now it's stopped moving, and I can hit enter. I'm going to undo that. But yeah, you can do that with this, and then you can move like any points you want just by holding down control. There we go. So you just kind of do whatever you want. Yeah. Alright, now I'm moving the whole side of this by holding down the control button and using my mouse. There we go. I'm happy with that. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't like that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit Control Z. Gets me back. Alright, you can do the same thing for anything you want. Do it for this guy. Yeah, you get the point. Alright, undo that. Now one last thing with the transform tool. If you want to keep the proportions correct, but you just want to make this smaller or larger, you would just hold the corner, hold shift, and click and drag. And that makes it smaller. If you keep on going, it's going to make it upside down, but make it larger. And I'm just holding down the shift key and moving my mouse. And then once I'm happy, I can hit enter. It makes it larger. Now I wouldn't go too large, because then that's when you can get into pixelation and making the photo blurry, and it just doesn't look good. So just be careful with that. So yeah, just holding shift, clicking and dragging, and let go, hit enter, and yeah, that's how you resize things. Now let's undo that. And now I'm going to talk about alignments real quick. I don't use this that much in Photoshop, but let's say these are the alignments right here. I don't think you can select anything because I don't have multiple objects selected within my Photoshop or within my project. But if I select both of these, they should, yep, they showed up. So to select both of these, I'm going to hold down Control, have my data selected right now. I'm going to hold down, yeah, Control, and click the flowers. And now they appear because I have two objects, more than two objects selected, or more than one object selected. Alright, let's just move one of these around just to be off center. Like, let's make them both off center. Alright, and now I'm going to hold down the Control key, select both of them, and now this just aligns things. Oh, I just clicked accidentally. So this one aligned it to the center, both of these on a center line. I can do it on the side. Well, they're both centered now, so it doesn't really matter about the side or the left side because they're perfectly the same size. But that would look different if one was square. The square one would keep on jumping back and forth depending on whether you click the right align or left align. Now I can align them both to a bottom, and that makes it both be stacked on top of each other. And I'll do the center. It's not going to do anything because they're perfectly the same size. So if they weren't, let's say undo this. There we go. I'm just going to select my desert and make it a little bit smaller so we can see the effects that this has. And I just hit enter to be happy with the size that I made it, like that. Now I'm going to hold down the shift key and see how I left align this, right aligned it. It's going to align both of them, align them in the center, and then let's make one of these smaller, squish it a little bit so the width or the height isn't the same, so we can see the effects of the align tool. And there we go. So it's just aligning them to whatever I feel like, left, right, up, down, middle, center, things like that. Alright, so those are the align tools. I'm going to go back out by holding Control Alt and undo it until they're back to the original state. And now you can set how many times Photoshop goes back and undoes something. And it's in the settings, but we're not going to get to that right now. I think it goes back like maybe 50 times. But the more you go back, the more you set it to go back, I think the more memory it uses. But I haven't really played with that at all lately. I just keep it its default and just remember, like, if you have 1,000 steps that you want to go back with, it's not going to go back all the way to that. It's going to have a limit and just say, hey, we can't undo anymore. So just remember to keep that in mind and don't think like, oh, I can continue to go back forever until a project started. That's not going to happen. So just continue to remember to like save and stuff, and we'll get to that maybe in this tutorial. Alright, alignments we finished. I'm not going to cover 3D. These alignments, they should have showed up, but I'm not sure why. I'll figure that out later if you really want to know. Distribute edges. Okay, so they're just talking about edges here and bottom edges and stuff like that. But for time's sake, I'm just going to keep on going. If you got alignments down, you could probably figure that out. Sorry about that. Now Shift and Alt commands. I'm going to do that real quick. So if you want to move this, let's say, I'm going to undo that. Control Z. Click on just the flowers. And let's say I want to keep this like perfectly aligned. So I have Smart Guides on right now. So Smart Guides kind of does its best to keep it straight, to go completely horizontal like that, or if I want to go up, they kind of snap into place. Now if you don't have Smart Guides on, or you're using an older version of Photoshop, you can keep that aligned by just holding down the Shift key, and whichever direction you start in. See how I'm moving it? I'm holding down the Shift key and trying to move it up and down. It's not going to move because I'm using the Shift key right now, and that's just keeping it in the whichever direction I started in, which was horizontally. It can only go back and forth. Now if I start by holding down the Shift key and moving it up, it's only going to be able to be moved up, not left and right and all that stuff. And now again, if I go side to side, I started in a slanted direction. It's only going to go side to side. And yeah, so that's just a cool kind of feature to have if you're trying to just go like, hey, I want to move this up, and you don't have Smart Guides. Just hold down the Shift key, and there we go. It just snaps it back into place. All right, so you can continue to play around with that and get used to, familiar with it. And Alt. What was I going to do about the Alt command? Okay, Alt, we already talked about that. It duplicates it. And yeah, so that duplicates it. Now if you're working, you want to save your project real quick, you can just go to File, Save, and save it as long as it's a Photoshop file, whatever you want, and say Save. It's going to save it as an untitled one, which I didn't really care to do, but it did. So now I have it saved. I can close out and come back to it whenever I want. So I hope this helps you. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments below, and I will try to get back to them as fast as I can. Thanks for watching.